All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Simo?
Well, you wanted to talk about I guess the Russian money in social media. So we'll get that through that annoying stuff. And we wanted to talk some football to have some fun. And
Yep.
we had talked about talking about the early puberty thing, and I've got stuff on that, but we're gonna do a whole episode on that just by itself when we have more
Mhm.
time. And also, I wanted to take another tangent on it too because I was just thinking about it in the last session I had with some clients. Is I wonder if this is affecting average age of menopause as well,
Hmm.
because they should be correlated because menopause basically starts when you run out of eggs. So if you start dropping your eggs earlier, then we
Yeah.
might see something there. So I'm going to look into that as well.
Well,
It may be nothing. It may be a nothing burger, but I'm going to look
mhm.
into it.
Well, that was the plan, but I've got my flash shirt on because I'm a giant nerd and because we needed a quickie because my weekend schedule is up in the air right now, and this
Well,
RT stuff is, oh
I got
yeah.
my Texans shirt on for football, and we'll get to that. Yeah,
So
go ahead.
for anyone who doesn't know what's going on, this started blowing up yesterday that I saw this all
I
over
saw it like
X.
a week ago.
Uh, this in particular,
The
uh,
yeah,
the
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 money
tenant
come.
media thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it was really going nuts yesterday. So there may have been some developments. I don't know why it was all over my feed last night and making me go, what is this? Um, but Tenet Media is a right right leaning uh alternative media group. So it's YouTube and Rumble people. Um, it was started by Lauren Chin and her husband Liam Donovan, and I pulled up for the kind of overview here. I pulled up Andy No because he's an old-fashioned reporter. He's also not a righty. He is a gay liberal man. Um, but he's
But you would think
also
he's a righty because he also wrote the book on exposing Antifa.
and was
Yeah.
literally given brain damage for it. He was nearly killed for infiltrating Antifa and reporting on them. The dude has giant pendulous brass balls because he still tweets about it. He still goes after them. He has absolutely no fear in exposing them and calling out bad actors by name.
This book right here,
Yep. Yeah.
Unmasked. Yeah.
So he did a write up of this yesterday. Um, this is from September 5th, and we're recording this on Friday the 6th. Um, and what what prompted all of this was an unsealing of an indictment. Okay. But what got my hackles and radar up was that immediately, not just the TDS left, but the TDS right, those who are still clinging to the Never Trump moniker, then and that remnant, if you will, that would just never let that go. Which to reset, I was part of that. When back in 2015, 2016, I was blogging and I was on X and or on Twitter, and I would use that hashtag, and I wrote some blog posts about it because the whole point of Never Trump was from the right this idea that, well, you have to support him if he's the nominee. No, I don't. Uh, and you can't make me. And going into the 2016 election, he was something of a mystery because, yeah, he had all of these public pronouncements, and you can go we've I mean, you've brought up stuff all the way back with Phil Donahue back in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
where he's talking about trade policy and other things. So there was some sort of a core there, but as far as from a Christian conservative perspective, I'm looking at him going, I don't know who this guy is. I don't trust him, and some of the stuff he says are really disconcerting to me. So no, I'm not voting for the guy. I had enough of that with McCain and Romney, and I'm done now. I'm done voting for those kinds of people. Well, then he actually had a term. And for the first 3 years of it, it was, holy crap, he's actually doing stuff. And he's doing stuff I like, and then COVID happened, and we'll ignore that for the moment. But that is why I say the Never Trumpers are nonsense now, because it doesn't make any sense. All of these people, like frickin' Jonah Goldberg, who seems to have forgotten he wrote a book called Liberal Fascism, are still pretending like Trump doesn't have a record, that Trump is only mean tweets, that Trump is only bombast. The guy has a record now. And part of that record was a 3 year Russian collusion investigation that turned out, and we've gone through it. You can go back and you can look at the inspector's general report, which I went through and I brought up a while ago, that this was all BS from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that got my radar up was, one, immediately both the anti-Trump left and the anti-Trump right were using this indictment to smear pretty much the entirety of the right. And a couple of the bigger names here were Poole and Rubin. Lawrence Southern is also part of Tenet Media. Benny Johnson, who I don't really know. I've seen him on Nerdrotic, so those guys know
Yeah,
him.
I didn't know who
Um,
Benny Johnson was either. So
so I just barely know who some of these people are by name or reputation. I don't really know their work. Um,
yeah,
Laura
well,
Chin
and
is someone
I don't.
who I
Yeah, I don't
kind of
follow Chen, and I haven't followed Ruben for a while, but I can speak to
mhm,
Pool whenever you're done with
yeah,
your first part. Yeah.
yeah. So that immediately made me go, wait a minute here. But then in his brief little article here explaining what's going on, No says something else that really got my hackles up, because I didn't read the whole indictment, but in reading the indictment, and something No points out here is that it doesn't look like the talent, the creators that were part of Tenet Media knew where this investment money was coming from, but maybe Chin and Donovan did.
Yeah, this is
Uh,
what I've heard.
and
Yeah.
there may have been some deception there on their part. And that was another thing that made me raise my antenna. I was go, well, wait a minute, but they're not part of the indictment. In fact, their names were inferred because of Tenet, because they were the founders of Tenet Media. They weren't actually named in the indictment. So I was going, well, this is starting to seem a little salacious. And this is starting to smell like lawfare. But however, it does appear that he put an update here that shortly after this report was published, Tenet Media announced privately to its staff that it was ceasing operations. The founders of Tenet Media, the right-wing media startup accused by the US DOJ of illegally taking nearly 10 million from Russian state actors to launder Russian influence, were raided on Wednesday as the indictment was unsealed, according to sources who spoke exclusively to the post-millennial. So it does look like, while they weren't part of that indictment, they are under investigation for whatever is going on here. And No has some sources inside Tenet Media who spoke to them on condition of anonymity. Um, Shin, a right wing YouTuber and social media personality, and her husband have not commented publicly. The company's social media accounts were still posting content just before the indictment was unsealed. Sources tell TPM that Tenet Media staff have been kept entirely in the dark since the indictment's announcement, with the founders not communicating at all with any employees or contributors. But I will add that those contributors, they have not been silent. Poole, Johnson, I know those two for sure I've seen have made statements. Um, I don't know anything else. But here's the thing that really jumped out at me that made me go, from No's report. So the indictment that prompted all of this, I thought well, there must be a there because the DOJ is bringing an actual case, but they're not really because the DOJ alleges that two at-large Russian nationals. So you've got an indictment with no arrests here. So we don't really know who these two are. We only have the DOJ's word and what is in their indictment presented before a grand jury. That again, remember, grand juries are all completely one-sided, which is why there's the old lawyer saying is that a half decent DA could get a ham sandwich indicted because it's only your side of the story to the grand jury.
Hmm.
Um, illegally laundered nearly 10 million to Tenet Media to push quote discord and division unquote in the US in favor of Russian state interests. They are also accused of violating FARA, the federal law that requires agents of foreign countries to register their activities. Chin and Donovan were not charged in the indictment, nor were the six public facing talents that created content under contract for Tenet Media. Those content creators included Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Lauren Southern, Matt Christensen, and Taylor Hansen. Except for Southern, who has not commented publicly, the content creators
Taylor
released
Hansen, he's a
statements.
street reporter.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's what I thought he was too. Yeah. um, saying that they had full editorial control over their content. The indictment alleges some of them were misled by the two Russian defendants and the company's founders about the funding source. All right. So to me, the fact that we don't have actual because he calls them defendants here, but we don't really have defendants because they're at large.
Hmm.
There's not been an arrest here. So boy, howdy, seems like there's an awful lot of smoke, but where's the fire?
Well, and connections are really shaky too. So again, I'll speak to Pool. He's mentioned Ruben, but I can't really speak to it because I didn't know the. This is not the Ruben report. This
Mhm,
is another
mhm,
thing that Ruben does, which is related to what Pool is. His Tenet Media connection is the culture war.
mhm.
So it's not IRL, which is their daily show. It's not his news show in the morning. Those
Yeah,
have nothing to do with Tenet Media, but his on the IRL page, they also do the culture war, which they talk about like movies and skateboarding and stuff like that. And apparently Tenet Media paid them to distribute that on Tenet Media after it's filmed, after it's already done. So it was not like, hey, film this episode about X. It's you do the culture war. We like it. Let's spread that out on all these other platforms. So basically they like you would what do you call it? When you have a show, but it's played on all kinds of radio stations.
syndication.
Syndication. It's like
Yeah,
syndication. Yeah. So basically, they syndicated his Culture War episodes. And so they're already filmed, they're already YouTube standard stuff. And they said, hey, we want to buy that from you. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can buy that from me. And it goes out to all the other places that they put their media out. And so, if this is true, what it looks like to me, based on that knowledge, is if there are Russian operatives, they're not in there saying, say this and this and this and this. They're in there saying, find people who disagree with your current government and enhance their voices,
mhm.
which takes me to WikiLeaks. Because what did we say about WikiLeaks 3 years ago? Yeah, it could have caused these problems, but was it not true? And so they're using this to say all of these things said about Harris and Biden and everything was all Russian disinformation. It's like, no, it was information that these people had that got spread because someone maybe
Right.
from Russia, allegedly from Russia, said, hey, that's useful. Be
This is
yeah.
where I need to someone explain to Grampy how the internet works because I need to make a meme. I need Littlefinger saying chaos is a ladder, but we need to put Putin's head on Littlefinger because that's what this is about. And go back. This was early on. I want to say it was like episode 20.
Meme generator.
Okay.
It's an app. You
Um,
can get it. Yeah.
uh,
And if
because
the picture they have isn't in their database, you can upload any picture you want. So
because I've posted this a couple of times on X in response to people. I want to say it was like episode 25, so it was a long time ago that we talked about Alexander Dugin. Is this
I meant to have
Putin's?
that one queued up
Yeah.
to
It, and I'm curious here, ideals, because so as a bit of a tangent, one of the reasons I got interested in non-US history is because I wondered, is this how they teach it there? You know, like when I'm reading about the Japanese in the lead up to World War II, but is that how they teach it there? I wondered. And so looking at Alexander Dugin and calling him Hitler's Rasputin, and others in the West have called him that. But is he actually a thing in Russia? Or is he like an Alex Jones of, well, yeah, people know who he is and he has a following, but if someone outside the US was trying to paint Alex Jones as like the president whisperer, like the man who has Trump's ear, we would all laugh at him. We would say, no, no, you don't know anything about U.S. politics. And I'm curious if that's the way with Alexander Dugin. Is this now the fact that Ukraine apparently tried to take him out and ended up killing his daughter? That indicates to me that he's not just some esoteric professor.
well, he's influential. Whether he's
Yeah,
actually in the ear of
yeah.
somebody is different than are you influential? How do you
That's a good
search?
point. But um, the point being that that group, that ideology has been trying to flirt with the American right for a while now, and it has nothing to do with shared values, although they pretend that there are shared values there, and it has everything to do with shared enemies. And this is good old fashioned psyop stuff where again chaos is a ladder. So it's a win-win for Putin when he does stuff like this, because to your point, you are funding dissidents who are putting out information that is contrary to what the administration, to what the ruling class, because you would have to throw the deep state and most of the mainstream media in with that as well. You're putting out information contrary, so you're sowing chaos. But then when and or if it comes out where that funding is coming from, double win, because now you're sowing extra chaos, because now the other side gets to say, no, that's not true, that's all just Russian propaganda. And if you actually win, your election victory is illegitimate.
Yeah, and well, so we talked about Dugan, but I think one skill that Putin has that a lot of people misunderstand, and I think Michael Malice might agree with me here. Putin's a pretty damn good troll because we've got this
Just
coming
after
up.
this came out,
He
he
comes out and
laughingly said,
endorses
mm-hmm,
Kamala Harris.
because her
So
laugh is infectious.
yeah, yeah. And so yeah, if you're him, you actually want the weak administration in.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually probably being truthful, but in a snarky way. But he's also, if he's the KGB agent he's thought to be, he and his people, his think tank, are also doing this stuff because these guys were doing this for a while apparently, but all of a sudden they got caught.
Mm-hmm.
So either the DOJ had this the whole time, which is what I don't think, or he
Yes,
or he leaked something that got them caught.
but
Because
all
if
of a
the
sudden
DOJ had it
he's
the whole time, what I think it would have been an October surprise. It wouldn't have been now.
mm.
So it's
I, I
it's too early.
I think they're so desperate that I think there are going to be lots of October surprises.
Hmm.
And the way the news cycle moves and people forget things, no, I think they have plenty of stuff up their sleeve for down the road as we get closer to the election. But speaking of, you know, the where'd that money come from? I was actually looking for something because the Young Turks I was pretty sure got their initial funding from either the UAE or Qatar or one of those somewhat shady groups that don't have great human rights track records and whatnot. But then I found this newer article about from 2017 about a funding run, the fundraising that the Young Turks
And
did.
this
And
is
again,
Axios, so not a right
exactly.
leaning
That's
source.
why I
This
went with
is yeah,
Axios.
yeah.
And they raised $20 million. So, all these lefties freaking out over the 10 million that went to Tenet Media. No one watches the Young Turks anymore, and they haven't for a long time. You know, that Tenet Media reaches millions across its various uh, uh, contributors. So they raised a ton of money, and a big bunch of it came from Jeffrey Katzenberg. Well, who's Jeffrey Katzenberg? Oh, here's from the New York Times. Uh, Biden's secret weapon against Trump. That's who Katzenberg is. Longtime movie mogul, former bigwig at Disney, and now he's after Trump. So that money is okay. Those tens of millions to the
I,
Young Turks to go
I will
after
give the
Trump.
steelman
That's
argument though.
mhm.
That's at least American money with American
Sure.
interests.
It's at least money,
Yeah.
but let's
Mm.
let's not pretend that these
Now Soros is not an
no,
American
yeah. I don't even
or
know what his
a
citizenship
United
is.
States citizen. He's Canadian.
Okay.
Now
Um
he was formerly was
he,
he German or was he
he was
part
Hungarian.
Hungarian?
He
Yeah,
was a
but he was
Hungarian Jew
yeah
who collaborated with, yeah,
yeah
go look that up. He's a true
yeah.
life Bond villain. But to your point about, oh, so the FBI just now figured this out. Yes, this same FBI, hey, anyone remember that Michigan militia thing? Yeah. Or as this New York Post headline puts it, inside the FBI's infiltration and entrapment of a Michigan militia crew. And we talked about this a while ago, and there were stories that gave the numbers that literally there were more feds and federal informants and assets in that militia than there were civilian members. And if you go down into this article here, um, this really jumped out at me and was hilarious. Whitmer was denounced at protests and on Facebook page of the Wolverine Watchmen, where angry anti-government bluster poured forth. Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg testified to Congress in October 2020 that Facebook had identified the Whitmer kidnap plot as a signal to the FBI about 6 months ago regarding suspicious activity on our platform. But the plot didn't exist at that point. That is, until multiple government paid newcomers joined the group. Stephen Robeson, an FBI informant with a list of felonies and other crimes, organized key events to build the movement. Dan
Is he the one
Chappell,
that slammed his girlfriend's head against the nightstand?
that may be because,
Yeah.
yeah, he's the one that they say does have a list of felonies.
Hmm.
Um,
No,
another
this was
FBI.
during the investigation he did that.
Oh, Deering, lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Dan Chappell, another FBI informant who was paid $54,000. We're talking about money to influence things, became second in command and masterminded the military training for the group, even as he helped the feds wiretap the messages. Though several members explicitly opposed kidnapping the government, Chappell and Robertson helped hatch a ludicrous plot to snatch Whitmer from her vacation home and take her away for trial. Yeah, that same FBI. That same FBI, which opened multiple investigations into protesting parents, GOP lawmakers say. This is a Washington Examiner headline. This is reminding you that Merrick Garland, Attorney General, uh, pointed to these people showing up at Board of Education meetings and voicing their great displeasure over a number of things were domestic terrorists. And then, oh, jump to another headline there of of go away you. Oh, wait. AG Garland's son-in-law's education company supports critical race theory and made hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars consulting for various school districts on how to implement critical race theory in their curriculum. Yes, that same attorney general, that same Department of Justice, which is now assuring us that alternative right leaning media is a vast Russian conspiracy. Any thoughts on that before I move on to what really burns my bacon about this thing?
Yeah, I want to get to football. So, no, this is why when you sent me what we wanted to talk about, I was like, it actually was very uninteresting to me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm actually more concerned, and I'm glad you took this direction because I'm more concerned about what our own people are doing, spending the money. You know, what BlackRock is doing, what the deep state is doing, what Soros is doing, what the Disney guy you just brought up is doing. Everybody's talking about, oh, Elon Musk, Elon Musk, Elon Musk. We should shut him down because he's doing all these things to help the right. Yeah, that's exactly what every major corporation has been doing for the left for the last, I mean, how long have we been alive? I'm 44 years old. You know, okay, so let me rephrase that. The establishment. Chris Cuomo's video at the DNC where he talks about all the people in the suites and he talks about how much money it takes to be in the suite. And he's like, you think these people are the ones that are going to suffer from these policies? They're the people they say they're going after. So why are they funding it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not who they're going after. And that's the difference right now between the DNC and the RNC because the DNC is still owned by that. The RNC wants to be owned by that. That's why we got Nikki Haley shoved down our throats. That's why we got that's why freaking fat guy, what's his name?
Chris Christie?
Chris Christie came back because
Yeah.
he was trying to get that back. He was trying to get back to that. That's why all of these things happened. And it's just the guy who can't be bought is the enemy. The same for Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
The same for Joe Rogan.
Well, there's a meme that's been
Same
going
for
around
Vivek.
that um, they want to jail Elon Musk for um, not sharing user information, and they have jailed the Telegram CEO for
Hmm.
refusing to share
Yeah, right
user
now Musk
information.
has very few places he can go around the world
Mm-hmm.
because pre this election coming up, he's safe here.
That was one of the stories about the Telegram CEO is that he was invited to France by the president of France to talk about these issues. So he thought he was going there diplomatically to, hey, we need to talk about these issues and how we navigate this, internationally and through the laws and blah blah blah. No, you're coming here because we're it's entrapment. We're going to arrest you.
And
But
and and there's also videos of Kamala talking about X and how they
mm-hmm,
have abused their privilege of free
mm-hmm,
speech.
right. But
Free speech is not a privilege.
speaking of
Sorry.
who owns who, this is what really burns my bacon, though, because oh, what a coinky dink that indictment was unsealed right after it was revealed that the governor of New York, the current governor Hochul, and this person worked for the previous governor Cuomo, had an aide that was a high level official that was a CCP, a Chinese Communist Party agent. And this person pushed the CCP's agenda, blocked Taiwanese officials from being able to meet, not just with the governor, but with other New York officials. Her husband was involved in shady things as well. And do you think this is only happening in New York? Oh, no, because remember Bang Mang? I mean Fang Fang? The main reason I pulled up this story is because I wanted the picture so that I could say, CCP, if you're out there,
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna
I'm
say
I'm
she is hot.
totally
Yeah.
open for being honey trapped. I know stuff and things. I have all kinds of secrets and access to governments and officials and things. So call me. Swalwell is still in Congress. He was reelected after it was revealed that, okay, once upon a time it was bad enough if you were having an affair with your wife, cheating on your wife as an elected official, but oh, that affair was with a spy of a nation that is openly hostile to us.
But it's like a movie. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. You know, I've said this before, but I love like Penn and Teller. And what was that show they did where they had magicians try and fool them?
Oh shit, what
Um,
was that show?
that one was great. I loved that.
Yeah.
And where they would beat around, especially when they would start talking and they would try and beat around the bush of, I think I know how you did this, but I'm not going to say it openly. And I love that. I love that I know you're, and that's what made Penn and Teller so unique is they were kind of the first a magician never reveals their secrets, but they kind of did, but they kind of didn't of just, I'm lying to you and you know I'm lying to you and you know I'm going to trick you, but I'll bet you can't see how I'm going to trick you. And I love it because it
That
doesn't
this is
matter. Kind of like
exactly
what we're about
like
to talk to about.
this is
We're trying to get to
exactly
football for this same reason.
yeah, this is exactly like Weinstein's last talk with Williamson.
Mm,
He actually
haven't
brings up the
listened to it yet.
magician's trick.
Yeah.
And he said this was going on because and I was thinking about this way before that. And this is I guess probably about shit, I was still in that neighborhood, so we would had to have been 10 years ago or so. And I was mowing the lawn, and for some reason I just had this thought that every president's been the same, no matter what party they were for the last 30 years. And I'm like, I wonder if that's on purpose. And it was just a weird thought I had while I was mowing the lawn. And I'm like, that's either genius or evil genius, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still genius. And he started talking about the magician trick, and it was like he knows what card you're gonna pick. That's the trick.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you pick a random card. He knows how to get you to pick the card he wants you to pick. And so that's how our elections are run. They get you to pick the card they want you to pick. And the problem is DJT came in and blew that up because you picked the card that wasn't the one they wanted you to pick.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what's the difference between H.W. Bush, Clinton, Obama, or W. Bush, Obama? In that sequence, they were all kind of exactly the same. Just they had a D or a R in front of their name,
Mm-hmm.
and it was they're all establishment. The same thing with Nikki Haley, the same thing with Christie, the same thing with Biden, the same thing with had Harris not got destroyed by Tulsi Gabbard. It's all the same thing, and they're trying to get back to the same thing.
Yep.
Yep.
So heavy pinch of salt and skepticism when you start seeing stories like this and go, I don't know.
Well, and
This
again, like
is
Snowden and Assange, yeah, they may be bad, but is it true?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. These truth tellers weren't actually interested in the truth. They were interested in the grift. But were they telling the truth? Because you still have to answer for that, people in charge,
Mhm.
or
Well,
at least you should.
and if you're the kind of put yourself in the place of a foreign operative, if you're going to destroy your enemy, would it be easier if you had to fabricate something and then get it to be popular? Or would it be easier if you knew the truths and found the people talking about the truth? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's ease of entry right there. These people say the things that should be said anyways, but they're being silenced. Let's propel their voice. I mean, that's a faster path to victory right there.
Hmm. Hmm. All right.
I mean, if
Well,
we go back far enough, Martin Luther might have been funded, right? Not Martin Luther King, the original Martin Luther, right? Because it basically was the beginning of the end of the Holy Roman Empire.
yeah.
So
Well, um if you read his early writings and you look at the history, it probably not simply because he was not expecting the response he got. It wasn't supposed to start a reformation. It was just supposed to start an academic conversation.
yeah, but who wrote that history?
No, but if you look at the earlier writings
Yeah.
where you have less chance that it has been influenced in the hindsight of history. That's why you always try, and when you're looking for sources, you always want to try and get as close to the actual event as possible because you're more likely to get the more honest thoughts of those involved.
Hmm.
You
Well,
know.
okay, so I'm not saying that he was particularly funded. I'm saying the expansion of his ideas.
Mm.
So, I mean,
Oh no, that for sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Go read, or there's some good videos on the 30 Years War and see how quickly, one, how awful that war was, and two, how quickly it became political. How
Hmm.
quickly something that started off as a theological debate and disagreement turned into something political. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, transition time. And
Transition time, and we have no segue for this because, or you have a segue because we're
no,
going from this to football. So,
my only segue was this is the kind of watch the fingers where it doesn't matter. That's why I like magicians because it doesn't matter. You tricked me with something silly. No, the media. Oh, look at the shiny thing over here. That that does matter, and that's why it's so dang frustrating, and that's why we try and include something that we can get our brains into, but then ultimately doesn't matter. So, overreaction Friday because we had the Thursday night kickoff. My draft is a complete bust. My team is the worst, and I'm going to finish last in this fantasy league. And I regret talking you into starting the fantasy league again because football is a stupid sport and I hate it.
you didn't talk me into it. I was going to do it anyways. But at the same time, I did leave possibly 20 points on the bench last night because I had
Mm,
Xavier Worthy, who touched the ball twice and scored 2 touchdowns, one of them being a 40+ yard touchdown. So, but this is actually the worst because you're like, oh, he scored 20 points. He's going to be a good player. Well, he only touched the ball twice. They just happened to
mm.
be two gold
Two
opportunities.
big
How,
plays. Yeah.
yeah, how many times is that going to happen in the year, right? But I got 4 people tonight. And let me open this with the ridiculousness of the whole situation with this game. It's on a Friday night because it's in Brazil. NFL, quit this international push. Bring back your supplemental leagues if you want an international push. I loved the Euro League. I was a Frankfurt Galaxy fan while it was going. I did like the Claymores too because they were Scottish, but they were Americans in Scotland. But whatever, But it's bring back that. Bring back the developmental leagues because then it's like watching minor league baseball or something. It's still really fun, you know. Uh, and if you follow the players in the developmental leagues and they make it to the big time, you're like a super fan of those players. So it's this whole London games. Now we're in Brazil. I heard the flight to Brazil is like amazingly horrible because there's like absolutely nothing for a long time and it goes over the equator. And for those that understand the shape of the earth, going north to south is a lot worse than going east to west or west to east because we're a fluid. Sorry about the dogs. We're a fluid. We're the earth is fluid. So
Hmm.
it's actually wider in
Bulges. Yeah.
yeah,
The
it
the
bulges out.
rotation makes
So
it
yeah.
bulge.
So going from this side, the eastern hemisphere to the western hemisphere is a long time, but going from the northern to the southern hemisphere is a long, long time. So
Hmm.
these people have to travel forever to go to a place, and that's not even the ridiculous part. It's
Hmm.
in Sao Paulo. And Sao Paulo, apparently, their rival soccer team, football team, wears green. And anybody who watches a lot of not American football, football with the little the dash on top of it,
Football.
football, the one where you actually kick the ball with your foot, it should be called football, is not the one where the ball is a foot long, so they call it football. But it's they get a little crazy in their stands. So the rival wears green. So the NFL is actually concerned that there's going to be violence if the players wear green. And we have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are green and white, versus the Green Bay no, Packers, excuse me, Green Bay Packers, who are green and gold. I mean, green is in their name. And I'm like, really? If you're going to do this, first of all, I don't agree with it from the beginning. But second of all, pick two teams that don't wear green. We got a lot of teams playing this weekend. It could have been San Francisco. Let me look at what teams are playing this weekend, and I can probably find a few that are
Mhm.
not
Well, and
green on either side.
on top of all of that, because of, let's be
Steelers,
honest.
Falcons. There you go.
There you
Black and
go.
black. Yeah, you could have had that.
Uh, the guys on the radio were talking about it yesterday, I think, when I was driving around, and pointed out that because of the logistics of this, the home team is in a hotel that is close to the stadium. It's like 15, 20 minutes by bus to the stadium, so not a big deal. But the away team is in a hotel that is going to take them 90 minutes to 2 hours to get to the stadium because of the traffic. And oh, yeah, this isn't exactly one of the safest places in the world. So you've got 90 minutes to 2 hours where it could get a little nail bitey, and you're going to be reminded that you're not in a great place because you're probably going to be surrounded by very heavily armed security. Good job, NFL. It's absolutely brilliant.
There are 11 matchups this week that do not have green in them. You could have had any of those 11 matchups of the what is it, 15 matchups in the league, somewhere around there? Because no,
Mm-hmm.
32 teams, so 16.
16. Yeah, no
Yeah.
buys yet.
I mean, including us, Colts versus Texans,
Mm-hmm.
blue and red against blue and white. Hey, there you go. It's not a home game for us. So who is considered the home team there?
I think Philly. I think Green Bay are the ones that have to have the extra drive.
Okay, so Green Bay is the one that chose to wear some green. So Philly's doing white jerseys with black helmets, and Green Bay is doing yellow jerseys with green pants. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Well,
On to the other parts of football.
do we care about uh the not football part of football that happened recently with this O'Keefe undercover video of a Washington exec? Did you see that?
I have
Or do
no
you
idea
care?
what you're talking about,
Oh
so
my
I
goodness.
actually am interested.
So,
Actually, give me just a second. Let me pause this. Sorry for the hiccup. I had the game is actually coming on now, so I had to turn it on and pause it real quick. I hate that they're
mhm.
doing all this streaming stuff because it's on Peacock, which is the NBC streaming. From a business standpoint, okay, I do follow some business people, and they're like, "This is genius." I'm like, "Yeah, from a business standpoint, it is genius. From a fan standpoint, it's being a captured audience."
It's I
Yeah.
would say though it's uh penny wise pound foolish. So it's not really genius because we have already tipped over the other side of the hill, and people are done. They've already decided, uh-uh, I'm done with all these streaming services. I'm not going to sign up for, what is the point of cord cutting if I end up signing up for 10 different streaming services? So I end up paying as much, if not more, than I was for cable or satellite.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I'm not.
and it's the thing.
They're not making money.
What is the thing? We used to you would have certain games on CBS, certain games on Fox, and then NBC would have certain games or whatever, but they were all on the network. and the commercials paid for the game. So you were the consumer because the commercials are the ones that are
Hmm.
paying for it. So they're selling to you. And then these networks decided to have streaming services. NBC is Peacock. And so now if you watch NBC to watch a game, well, now this one's on Peacock, not on NBC. So you have to get NBC's streaming service. But guess what? You're still going to watch the commercials because the game is still going to stop during timeouts and they're still going to go to commercial and they're going to run the same commercial than if you were watching it on NBC. So it's a scam to me.
Speaking of the NFL trying to push stuff that is nonsense, because that's what this is. Yeah, it's they're trying to shove this into and force their fan base to accept this thing that they don't want, much like the pride nonsense, much like the BLM nonsense. Well, this Washington VP of something or other got honey trapped by O'Keefe Media and was on a date and was secretly recorded, basically saying all of this is crap and they know it's crap, but they're pushing it anyway because one, some of them legitimately think this will make us more money. But the thing that really got him in trouble is that he pointed out half the locker room are white Christians who aren't in on this, you know, LGBTQ plus movement. And the other half are black guys who grew up in rough neighborhoods that are incredibly homophobic. And they don't want anything to do with this either.
mhm.
But we're forcing them to because the league has made the decision that this is how we make more money. And the guy got fired for it. He said the quiet part out loud while he thought he was on a date with a hottie. And he did. When I first saw the headlines, I thought he was slandering or using slurs or whatever. He was very diplomatic and political in how he phrased things. He was just saying, this is how it is. These are the people in the locker room. These are the people in the front office. This is what is actually going on. He wasn't stereotyping or slandering or slurring. He was just saying what is. And no, he's fired. Can't have that.
Yeah, which is funny because in my social psychology class, one of the things on day one was she asked the question and you had to write down your answer. And then she went around the room talking to people about your answer. And one of them was, "You're in this." And she showed a picture. It looked like a boardroom. And she said, "You can imagine this being anything, but it did look like a boardroom to me." And she said, "One of these people said something that's an ism. Do you make it whatever it is? It's an ism. What do you do?" And I want you to write down, "I ideally do this. This is what I would truthfully do." And in this situation, what would change your ideal? So what would be the difference in that? And I was just like, okay, one of these people said an ism. I'd probably say something like, "Not cool, bro. We'll talk about it later. Let's get back to the subject at hand." That was my ideal answer. The what would I do? Well, I've already been there before. So I said, I would do the same thing. And then what would change your opinion? And I'm like, is it my athletes? Or is it a boardroom at a local university? That would change my decision. So I was like, is depending on the audience, how did the people respond? Because if everybody was shocked, then I would approach it probably more to the extreme side of, "Hey, stop that." But if it was like, "Oh, you're a fool," the person who would be the subject of the ism is like, "Oh, you're a fool," like they hang out together and gave it back to him, then I'd be like, "Hey, let's stay on topic," but haha. Because look at locker rooms, man. You've been there with you know uh, my friends that are all hanging out. I didn't want to say a name, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, would you talk normally? You're making us all look like fools, and add expletives in there that I can't say on YouTube without getting canceled. So, it's
Hard R's were involved.
hard R's were involved, and it's white, black. Hispanic, Jewish, everything, and they give each other a hard time, and they all give it back to each other.
Yeah.
That's locker rooms, man.
So someone says an ism. Oh no. Well, in that case, someone's going to get an ism back and they're going to try and top it is in that context.
Yeah, which when I hear something like, "Oh, well, this person was like," when I hear this person did this in the locker room and they said this and da 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 da, I'm like, actually, you're probably the one nobody in the locker room likes because otherwise you'd be just doing it back and forth with them too.
Hmm.
Locker room talk is if you don't have thick enough skin to handle a little bit of that, then you're the one nobody likes.
Hmm.
If people watch their language around you in the locker room, you're the one that nobody likes. Nobody, because they don't want to have to deal with that crap. They want to just hang out and BS each other. They're also saying things like, "Oh, you were a P on that play. You were the one that oh, I saw you not want to get hit that time," or all these other derogatory things. I'm a dude, and if somebody called me out on, ducking down and not taking the contact, that's as bad as someone just saying something about my skin color because it hits you deep. Hits me deeper because it's something I may have actually done versus something that you can just kind of play with me with.
Before we get on to the actual prognostication here, I think it's important to point out here, though, there's still a code, though,
Oh, there is a
because
code. Yeah, there's always bro code.
so like I can't remember if I've said this before, but Warren Sapp, talking with Whitlock last year, in the preseason and talking football, and he made the point that because they were talking about going back and forth, and he was one of the stories he brought up was Carter, Chris Carter, the great wide receiver for the
That
Vikings.
only catches touchdowns according to
Hmm.
yeah,
And
Ryan.
you know, Carter was like a Reggie White. He was like the locker room pastor. He was very serious about his Christianity, and so he would not curse, which made him a rarity in the NFL and in a locker room. And and Sapp talked about how that made it worse because he would cut you off at the knees and he'd never say a swear word. And so he was talking about this rookie DB on the Bucks started jawing with Carter, and Sapp's sitting there trying to get his attention and shaking his head, going, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't engage with him," you know. And that kind of thing is like, you know, that kid walked into that meat grinder. That's his own fault. But he said there were three instances where we're not playing anymore. And that was even as a defensive lineman, right? He said the first one was my quarterback. Don't you take a cheap shot at my quarterback or I'm coming off the sidelines. Don't you take a cheap shot at my kicker or I'm coming off the sidelines. Don't you badmouth my head coach or we're not playing anymore. So Warren Sapp was someone who liked to talk. He liked that psychological game. He liked the trash talking, and he would get in on it. And uh, he was there with Brett Favre once on the set with Whitlock, and Favre was telling a story about how he got pancaked by Sapp, and Sapp's on top of him, yelling at him and cussing at him. "I got you, man. I got you." And he goes, "Warren, I just threw in a touchdown. I don't care. That's not my job. I got you." And but there was still a line of you don't badmouth my coach, you don't take a cheap shot at my quarterback, and you don't take a cheap shot at my kicker. Otherwise, we're fine. Otherwise, we can go back and forth. But there are still lines. Speaking of lines,
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
where do we draw the line on dead cap space? Because holy crap, I I pulled this up and I was like, I knew Denver was in trouble, but my gosh, 76 plus million in dead cap. So over 10 million of the next nearest dead cap team, which is we were talking, just back and forth before we were recording, and I was, before the draft, I was wondering how much do I trust Allen? Do I want to go with Allen again this year as my quarterback? Because I feel like Buffalo's window is closing. and you didn't think it was closed yet, but that it was closing fast. And looking at that dead cap, oh, it's closing fast. That's a lot of dead cap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, go scroll down, or either scroll
Let me
down or
and
give me my
now let me
screen.
flip
Yeah.
it here. And so
Yeah.
this is interesting to me because a lot of people are picking Cincy as the most likely potential upset for KC, and
Have we got
they
any
have the least
news
dead cap.
on the Chase contract though?
That I don't know. I haven't seen that. So you got your top 10 here as far as not a ton of dead cap. Um, although I would say maybe not even the top 10 because once you get to Dallas, you're over 20 million in dead cap, and that's a lot. And when you're talking about a total cap of around 250 million, 20 million in dead, that's a big percentage. That's a big chunk. Um, and so you've got Cincinnati. I just don't know that I trust that offensive line. They've been trying to fix it. I think Burrow is unfairly getting a reputation as injury prone, but the dude gets hit a lot.
Yeah,
So,
and whatever happened to his arm, that had to be a pre-existing condition going into that game because he threw about a 5 yard pass and he whipped back like he had broken
mm,
one of the bones in his arm. So there had to be something already there. Now, I just looked it up. Jamar Chase is close to a contract extension, but doesn't hasn't decided if he's going to play. So that dead
oh
cap
wow.
number could shoot way up
I tell you,
if he decides not to play.
the one that kind of jumped out at me because I'm really rooting for them this year is Detroit, who's right in the middle of the pack at 15 with 30 million dead cap.
Mm.
Um,
The one I was looking for was Pittsburgh because you brought up Denver. The th-
Pittsburgh's at 11th.
yeah, the thing about Pittsburgh is they have three starting quarterbacks basically because they have Russell Wilson with the dead cap is Denver paying for what Russell Wilson's contract while he's at
Oh
Pittsburgh
yeah, that's right.
because they cut him. And
That's
so
a
they picked
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wilson up on basically league minimum because he's getting paid multi-millions of dollars by Denver for the next 2 years still.
I
So
forgot about that with
yeah,
Denver.
and
Yeah.
then they got Justin Fields because Chicago did the same. So Pittsburgh, that was amazing. That was like genius GM work right there.
Well, my before I looked at this, my prediction for the season was going to be a KC versus San Fran rematch, but just kind of my gut, I don't think KC is going to three-peat, which hasn't been done in a very long time. Um, I don't think KC's going to three-peat. I think it's going to be a KC Niners rematch, and I think Shanahan finally figures out how to get it done, and the Niners win. That and looking at the the Moneyball numbers here, that's a conceivable prediction because they're both in pretty good shape when it comes to their contracts.
Well,
The
and let's look at last night's game. This is we should have done this before the first game because last night's game KC won, but it was kind of an ugly game.
Yes,
It-
and I just clicked on KC here to look at them because another thing that we looked at when we first started doing this a couple of years ago was the percentage of your cap for your top players. And right now, even with the contract extension they gave him, they've managed it to structure it so that Mahomes is taking up just under 15% of their cap,
mhm.
which to me that's a good number. That's about the max it seems. Looking at past history of teams that have been successful and won Super Bowls, that's kind of about the max you want that top player making. Um, and your next couple of guys are the guys up front defending him, and then of course Travis Kelsey. Uh, and then you've got two top quality defensive players after that. So they seem to be in pretty good shape as far as that
Yeah,
goes.
and Chris Jones looked amazing last night. The
And and
defensive end
and
that's on that list of higher
with
playing.
with the being able to cheat by seeing a game. Remember, last year the Detroit shocked everybody by beating KC in the opener, and people thought, "Oh no, KC's in trouble," and KC got it figured out, and yeah, they
Yeah,
might have
but
had some
Detroit
help in the
also made it
playoffs,
to
but
the NFC
yeah,
Championship game.
yep.
So,
So and both of
that was
those
the
teams
shock.
end up making the championship.
It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the shock that KC lost. It was a shock that Detroit was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I saw from Baltimore is why I had Lamar Jackson so high on my list and why I'm kind of thinking I shouldn't have drafted Mahomes when I did and just waited and picked up Jackson a couple of picks later. However, my concern with Jackson for fantasy is the same concern everyone has with him in real life, which is he going to still be doing that at the end of the season when it matters? Because last night it looked like they were doing what I thought they might do, which is all right, you've got Jackson, who's always been a big running threat, and now you put Derrick Henry behind him, and you still have the kid from OSU from Oklahoma State back there too as your change of pace back, and he's a pretty decent
Justice
running
Hill.
back.
Yeah.
Hill, yeah. So now that makes Jackson even more of a threat and theoretically makes Henry, who was already a solid running back, even more of a threat because you have to balance against Jackson. But again, they run the ball a lot and those legs wear out by the end of the season. So are they going to be able to do it in the playoffs?
Well, and their O line kind of stinks this year. Because here's the thing: this is the what I bitch and moan about all the time. 2 years ago, Jackson got the big contract, and it took a year for that to play out. And we're going to
Mm-hmm.
see that with Philadelphia now too. Is you got to sacrifice that money somewhere, and let's look at where their money's going. Whoops.
Who, Baltimore?
Yeah. I've got it up here. Okay, so we're on the same site that
Mm-hmm.
Heath was on. Baltimore, Baltimore, where are you? Here we go. Baltimore. Come on, you can do it. Okay, Lamar Jackson obviously is, oh, he's actually under that Mahomes number.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the next highest paid players. We got Humphrey, who actually had a bad game last night,
Mm-hmm.
is taking up a big chunk. And you get to four before you get a lineman. And then you get all the way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 before you get another lineman
Mm-hmm.
on payroll. And their offensive line was really holding them back last night. So, but you see that they sign these 200 and something $1 million contracts. They take up 15%, 20%. In the case of the your freaking Cowboys, 25%.
21.59. I was just pulling that up.
over
Dak
20
Prescott is
over 20%.
21.59.
Yeah, over
But
20% of
here's
the
the real
contract.
killer though, I think when we look at these numbers, I think what matters a lot is how far down the next couple of guys are. So it goes 21.59% for Dak Prescott and then DeMarcus Lawrence, who's your top edge rusher, is at 8%.
Where's CD Lamb in that? Is it updated?
I don't know that it's updated because right now it's saying it's probably back ended because right now he's only his cap hit is 8.75 million, which is 3.43%.
Okay, because he just signed that big contract.
Yeah, right now this year he's actually below Brandon Cooks for money and cap hit.
Yeah, that's the same with the Texans. Is we got our number one paid receiver is actually Robert Woods, who's our number four
It
receiver. So
this is the thing that drives me crazy about the Cowgirls and why I don't trust them. And when it came to should I draft this person or should I draft this person? Well, because like my top pick, I picked second, which meant I didn't get McCaffrey. So it was all right. According to all the experts, the top two next picks are either Tyreek Hill or CD Lamb. I don't trust the Cowboys. And and here's a big, thing that's so frustrating about them is if you take out Dak Prescott, these numbers actually kind of make sense. Your top guys are your elite edge rusher who almost always gets double teamed. And if he doesn't, he makes a difference. Zach Martin, who's been a Pro Bowl, all pro guard for like a decade now and shows no signs of slowing down. Your shutdown cornerback, um, your young guy who's your new go-to tackle, and then you get a veteran and a younger wide receiver. Those are pretty good numbers from 8% of the cap down to 3.5% of the cap. You know, those are the guys you should be paying. And then you got this guy up here at the top who is taking more than double, almost 3 times what the next guy is getting. And what has he produced? Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I got an alert on my watch from my phone from fantasy football. Uh, Even though I haven't got to watch the game yet because I have it paused there. My quarterback threw an interception on his first pass. And the good news is the reason I got the alert is my defensive back is the one who caught the interception. So it
Yay.
was semi a net positive, but it still sucks. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, okay. So what we need to do in this episode then to close this out is make our Super Bowl predictions because it's our first NFL episode of the
Mm-hmm.
year. Let me look at those numbers one more
I'm I
time.
I'm sticking with what my preseason gut was, which was rematch, but the Niners pull it off and manage to win it this time. Um,
Hmm. Let me see.
although I say that, and I should pull up what the Niners individually the team looks like. Yeah, see, so their numbers, the Niners numbers are pretty good. Um, although you think Debo is overrated, and I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think Ayuk is probably more of a number one right now than Debo is. So that they are kind of overpaying Debo, but because they have Brock Purdy on that low contract, it's like, how far down do I have to go before I even find Brock Purdy? Jeez, he's where the
Yeah,
heck
but I
is he?
think this is the
Nobody even
last year
knows.
of that.
Yes, yes. So their window could be closing pretty soon. But right now, as far as cap percentages, they've got their money spread out pretty well. Left tackle, a good cornerback, a good defensive end, and then their number one theoretically wide receiver and no and one of the better tight ends in the league, and then Christian McCaffrey, who's by far the best running back in the league right now. So they've got their money spread out pretty well. So which is helping them. And certainly is a credit to that front office, which includes Lynch, who was a pretty darn good player himself.
Yeah, I'm torn because I'm just going to go kind of division by division. I think KC still defends
Mm-hmm.
their what is it? AFC Central? No, no, AFC West. Yeah, because they
AFC
have
West, yeah.
they have Vegas, San Diego, and
LA now, but who cares? And Denver.
yeah, and Denver. Yeah, so they're going to defend that, but I think they barely squeak that out because I think Vegas takes a step up. I think they barely squeak that out and they lose in the first or second round of the playoffs. Uh,
Really? You think Casey's out
I think
before
KC's
the
out.
before the
Yeah.
championship game? Okay.
I think Pittsburgh takes a step up and they duke it out with Baltimore to win that division. And I think both of them make it into the playoffs. Uh,
So
and
you
what
don't really trust Cincinnati either.
Oh,
Because a lot of people are picking
Cincinnati's
them
gonna
as
yeah,
kind of the
Cincinnati's gonna beat people up, but they sold their team this last year.
you
And we don't know about Jamar Chase. So they do have a good defense, but they even sold a lot of that. We have a guy on our team from that was a core on their defensive line.
mm-hmm,
So Autry is his name. And so they're kind of a wild card because they gave away a lot of key players.
mm-hmm.
So I think oh, that's tough. I think the Ravens squeak out the division, but the Steelers come in a very close second, getting into the playoffs. Texans win the South. Uh,
I don't think that division is going to be as trash as it's been, though. I think it's going to
With the
be a
South.
tougher road. Yeah,
You know,
I think.
everybody calls the South trash, but every time we make it to the playoffs, we win.
Mhm. That's
So
a good
I
point.
think it's just we beat each other up.
I think the Titans are in rebuild mode, but I think the Colts are may have finally figured out their quarterback situation. And I think they may be coming back, and the Jags still have a pretty good defense. And if Trevor Lawrence stays healthy, they got a pretty good quarterback. So uh,
See,
I think it's
here,
going to be tough, but yeah, I think the Texans win that division.
yeah, here's the wild card. If the Dolphins can get home games in the playoffs, they will get to the Super Bowl. But if
Mm,
they keep having to travel to KC or Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or all of these cold places in the playoffs, they were elite offense last year. They were the offense of offenses last year. And they go to
hmm.
KC in the snow, in 6 inches of snow, and score what, 6 points?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's so if they can really, I mean, we got Bills that are kind of taking a step back. We got the Patriots who have been in some sort of rebuild build mode for since their last Super Bowl, since
Hmm.
Tom Brady left, and the Jets who have an elite defense,
I
but
I had
can't run the
forgotten
ball for a yard, even though
I
Brees
had
Hall is
forgotten
the.
they actually finished kind of in the middle of the road last year with no offense. That's how good their defense was. When
Mhm.
Aaron Rodgers went down and Hall, who's a pretty darn good running back, he was hurt a little bit last year too. They had no offense, and yet that defense was so good. They finished kind of in the middle of the road,
Yeah,
fifth.
they were a bubble playoff team.
Overall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
even late in the year, there was still a holy crap, can the Jets make the because there was talk of Aaron Rodgers rehab is going so well, he might be able to rejoin the team if they make the playoffs. And I was like, wait, the Jets can make the playoffs? What's going on here?
Yeah. Raiders take a step up, but they're going to be a bubble playoff team at best. Chargers are going to be in a rebuild this year with the new head coach. Harbaugh's great, but at the same time, they sold a lot of their team. He went in
Mm-hmm.
and cleaned house, you know? So I think the surprise teams are going to be, and it's not just me homering because we were good last year and we took a step forward this year as Texans. Pittsburgh, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. And if the Dolphins can get a home field advantage in the playoffs, I think they go to the Super Bowl. But if the
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins do not get a home field advantage, I think the Texans end up going.
I don't think they will because I think the Jets are winning that division.
That's I'm not opposed to that because their defense is elite.
I think the division winners out of the AFC are the Jets, Chiefs, Ravens, Texans, and I
But
think
but
I think the
when I'm thinking playoffs, I'm thinking home field advantage too.
mhm.
And the Patriots can surprise you any given day. Uh the
I just think
Dolphins,
they've got
Bills,
too
and
far to go to
Jets.
rebuild. I think the Bills missed the playoffs this year. I
I
think
do
that's how much
too.
their window's close. I think the wild cards from the AFC are going to be the Dolphins, the Steelers, and the Jags.
Okay, so I'm with you on Dolphins and Steelers, but I think it's the Texans. Jaguars took a step back. And
Hmm.
I don't their defense is not very good right now.
So who's the third AFC wild card team?
Uh well, I said Steelers are going to be the wild card out of the North, but I
Yeah.
think they're going to surprise people. So, then Raiders or bubble.
Hmm.
Dolphins and Jets could go either way, so one of those would be the wild card. So there's your three.
See, I'm not sure about the Raiders, and I'm not sure about how much Harbaugh improves the Chargers. So those are the two teams I'm looking at going, this could be a complete disaster, or
Yeah,
this
but they
could
get
be a
to play the
big
Broncos twice.
surprise. Yes, well, that's true.
Yeah.
All right.
That's my thing about the East is the Bills aren't going to be as good, but they're
Hmm.
still probably going to go 1-1 with every team.
They certainly have that
Yeah.
possibility because they play so well at home.
My
And
surprise playoff team on this side, Commanders.
really,
That's my surprise playoff team. They took nothing but steps forward, and
hmm,
they were lower middle class last year, which the steps forward I think could bump them to upper middle class.
and even in these past years where they've been stinky, they've still had good defensive players. And
Mhm.
Dan Quinn is a good defensive coach.
And as usual, Cowboys win the division, but choke in the playoffs.
Yep.
I think the Eagles took a big step back, which is sucking for me right now in fantasy. Uh, Rams are going to be the wild card. Niners are going to take that division. Lions are going to take that. Oh, Lions and Packers are going to be a close one. But one of those will be wild card. One of those will be the
Mhm.
division winner. I think the Falcons are going to win the South. But I think the Panthers take a step forward. They're not going to be the whipping boy they were last year. Yeah, so wild card is either going to be Lions or Packers in that division. Rams will be wild card in the West. Commanders will be the third wild card. Cowboys win that division. So, and who goes to the Super Bowl? Gosh, it's hard to root against the Packers right now because they were so good and they were the youngest team in the league last year.
And they were
So,
so close to beating the 49ers
yeah.
at San Francisco. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to look at what's happening in the Packers game right now, and I'm going to say Packers go to the Super Bowl. It's going to be Texans Packers this year. Texans
Texans,
Packers.
Packers. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we will see how that plays out.
That probably would win me a lot of
Is
money if I put money on it right now.
all I know for sure is it won't be the Cowgirls. Sorry, Jason Whitlock. I know I watch you and I refer you to you a lot, but in his preseason show on Monday, he said the chefs over the Cowgirls was his pick for the Super Bowl, and
Well,
everybody on the show laughed at him, and I
both of
laughed at
those
him too.
teams, the problem is they have no depth. So when we're talking getting to the playoffs, like you said, the legs wear out, and the
Yeah, well,
legs of
that's true.
everybody on the team.
Well, I mean, that's me picking the Jets. That's assuming that 40 something year old Aaron Rodgers doesn't blow something else out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. That is all contingent on injury, which is why um the Texans I think are in good shape because they have a deep team, except I don't know who their backup quarterback is.
Davis Mills, they just re-signed him.
Okay.
Who was a
So
starter at one point, and he wasn't horrible. He wasn't like a great, but I mean, that's what you want in a second stringer. You want somebody who's
can
not going
can
to
you
take the spotlight, but he
well
can come in and play the game. Yeah.
last year when when Dak went down, it was oh crap, we're doomed. But Cooper Rush, who hadn't really done anything in the league yet, he went 3-1, which is what you needed your backup to do.
hmm
And they were just hoping you would go 2-2, and it was like 3-1, cool, we're in
Yeah.
good shape.
Well, and our pass rush is going to be fantastic this year. And if okay, so here's one of the big ifs. If Derek Stingley Jr. stays healthy all year, we only have to defend half the field because he in just his second year is one of the top cover corners in the league. So it's he's one of those guys that you can just say, okay, you're one on one no matter what. I don't care who you're guarding, it's one on one. And when you can do that as a defense, gosh, as a linebacker, as a middle linebacker, that's like the best thing that you can think of because I only have to worry about from here over. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there you have it. We'll see how wrong we are. We we weren't exactly on target last year. I know I wasn't.
What
But
did I say last year? Bills, Niners, right?
yeah, and I thought Bills Cowgirls. I thought it was going to be a Bills Cowgirls replay
Okay,
of
so
the
we were
90s. So
we were a no division game in one, and the Niners made it to the Super Bowl. So I was close. I was a little closer than you were, but didn't get it all the way.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So give us a thumbs up if you give a darn about football, and if you have any if you have any preseason predictions, put them in writing, and we'll see how it goes. Oh, I meant to have you ask Grok because social distillation is now official. We have a blue check
Oh, yeah,
mark.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so we'll do
So
that. We'll do that at some point. But yeah.
yeah, and then at the end of the year we can see if we are any smarter than Elon Musk's AI.
All right, guys. Uh Short one. Oh, we went a little bit, but about an hour and 15. But
All right. Then we'll
yeah,
see y'all Wednesday for some more Wheel of Time. And then at some point, we're going to get into this oy vey gender and puberty and weirdness
let me correct in
rabbit
here.
hole.
Sex and puberty.
Oh,
Gender
thank you.
is a social term.